your work is not who you are as a human. And I think ultimately that's a trap many of us fall into. And a lot of the work I'm doing has to do with the fact that a lot of guys, in their 20s are just climbing, 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 like make as much money as possible, etc. And then life happens and hopefully they meet someone special, they have kids, their world changes in an instant, but nobody pulls them aside and says like, okay, now you have permission to change too.
Adam Halberstadt, welcome to the Dad's Project podcast.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Super grateful, happy to be here.
Yeah, man, we've connected on LinkedIn. I am a big fan of your content and a lot of the work you're doing. So I'm excited to dive in. I want to start the show with a little bit of news hacking, something you posted about. I had seen previously Scotty Scheffler. And this past weekend, he won again, right? He's the number one golfer in the world. I think he made like $30 million already this year. You highlighted. But his quote was, I'd much rather be a great dad than a great golfer. And this is dad news, right? For the Dad's Project podcast. So why is this moment so powerful in your mind?
Yeah, it's so funny. I'm a golf junkie, and the major weeks are my favorite weeks, right? So I'm sitting here. I've actually got it above. I can't miss a moment of the Open Championship. So recording a podcast, have it on. But sitting there the other day, just hammering away, and I've got the press conferences on in the background, and I'm just instead of music, I'm listening to these guys, and I hear Scotty talking, and yeah, he's very wise. He's, obviously very faith driven. He's very grounded, and we know all that. But then he says he starts going down this rabbit hole of how it's not really fulfilling, and the euphoria of winning lasts a couple minutes, and then it's where are we going to go have dinner, and the chase, and that, and I like in that moment I stopped everything I was doing, and I just like locked in on the TV, and I'm like, because when someone of that stature, the best in the world at what they do starts to normalize what it means to be a human and have your priorities in check. And this idea that your work is not who you are as a human. And I think ultimately that's a trap many of us fall into. And a lot of the work I'm doing has to do with the fact that a lot of guys, in their 20s are just climbing, 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 like make as much money as possible, etc. And then life happens and hopefully they meet someone special, they have kids, their world changes in an instant, but nobody pulls them aside and says like, okay, now you have permission to change too, right? Like now it's okay to slow down and focus on your family and focus on your wife or your partner or your spouse, whatever it is. And the season of life has changed. No one says that.
Right.
We instinctively just keep going on this, like, I gotta make more money, I gotta grind, I gotta put in the hours, I gotta, right? And our validation becomes who we are as a professional, what our boss thinks of us. Every time we can post on LinkedIn, like, I'm excited to announce I'm vice president, confetti, yay, and like 270 likes, and right. And we chase that until someone says otherwise. So when someone like Scotty Scheffler gets to the podium and talks about that, here he is, number one in the world, called himself a sicko, like love to practice, love to grind, love to win. But at the end of the day, that's not what fulfills me in life. What fulfills me is going home, seeing my wife, seeing my son, getting to be a dad. And, he said that the beginning part of that quote was, if my work out here were to ever get to the point where it's impacting my ability to be a great dad, that would be the last day I play on tour. And then the next part of the quote was, because I'd rather be a great father than be a great golfer. And there's already spiraling of, this guy doesn't have what it takes and he'll never be like Michael Jordan and he'll never, and where my head went, Nick, is like, when we talk about the scoreboard needing to change in 2025 in terms of how we view success, I think part of it, and I'm probably in the extreme minority and I'm okay with that, is reevaluating what the greatest of all time means too. Because let's, look at Tom Brady or anyone who's the GOAT, right? And all we're really saying is they're great. Yeah, they're the greatest of all time at their craft, and that's fine. I'm not taking away championships and rings, whatever. But in my mind, someone who's able to do all that and have their life in order at home, and not be in the news cycle for, divorce, porn addiction, whatever, right? Like
Right.
there's all these other, right? Like, and I'm not disparaging Tiger, but like, yeah, he is the greatest golfer of all time. Yes. If Scotty Scheffler ends up winning 73 times as opposed to 82, and maybe, a handful less majors, but ultimately was able to do all of that for the entirety of his career, just like being a great dude at home, a great dad, a great husband, a great son, whatever. Sure, he may not go down as the greatest golfer of all time, but I guess where I'm going with it is, in my mind, shouldn't he be? Like,
Yeah.
and isn't that part of what we need to change in society? Is that like greatest of, I don't know. I know it's a tangent, and I know like you can separate your performance at work from whatever, but I look at things now, I guess, in terms of where I'm at in my life as, like whole body, whole life, whole everything. Like who you are is who you are. And if you could pull it all off with the type of balance where like you're the world number one and you're amazing in everything else that life asks of you, to me, that's the greatest of all time. So that's a tangent for another day, but that's obviously Scotty says he's a sicko. I'm a sicko in terms of like this mission of we're not just who we are at work, and normalizing that it's okay in different seasons of life to take your foot off the gas a little bit so that you can be the type of person that you want to be at home, because those moments are fleeting, and in the blink of an eye your kids are grown up and out of the house, and then sure, ramp it back up, go make millions, right? Like seasons of life change, right? Your kids are grown up,
Yeah.
they're out of the house, they're at college, turn it back up, go chase whatever you want. But I think there's just like a natural sort of ebb and flow to life, and it's okay to adjust yourself accordingly.
I love that tangent. I think it's the most important tangent, right? And LeBron James came to mind when we talk about Michael Jordan, who obviously is a crazy gambler and he's had all the wives, and is he involved in his kid's life? Like, we don't know the whole story. There's always, stuff that we don't know. But LeBron James has been in the limelight since late middle school, high school. I mean, I was in college and he was on TV, and I am way past college at this point. But he's done it with his high school girlfriend, and now he has a family, and now his son is a great athlete. Both of his sons, he's got a beautiful relationship with his daughter, and there's really been nothing come out that has tarnished his reputation. And I think we do need to start taking those things into account, because you make such a great point that we are not just who we are in our craft, whether it's sales or an entrepreneur, building a business, or a golfer, or whatever it may be. You are a human, and that encapsulates
Yeah.
encapsulates
Yep.
everything. That
I
work is just
couldn't agree
one
more.
part of that, right? If you're a dirtbag in every other aspect, like, you're not the greatest,
Well,
because
that's what I'm
you're not
saying.
figuring it all out. Yeah,
Because
exactly.
the problem with because you're right, because then you say that they're the greatest of all time, and then dudes everywhere, women too, are like, all right, if that's what the greatest of all time looks like, then if I'm aspiring to be the greatest at whatever, then, you know, put family aside, put my body, my health, put everything aside to be the greatest of all time. But if we start to normalize, like someone like LeBron may not have as many rings, or he's lost more in the finals than MJ did, but exactly to your point, but he's done all this and had a really balanced, fulfilled life. We don't know everything, but you're right. Like, there's been no controversy, there's been no drama. Seemingly, there's a lot of goodness that happens in that home, and that's what we should be striving for, is to be the best in our craft and to be the best at home. And chances are, part of the reason, and this was my point, Scotty's the number one golfer in the world because of this mindset. There's no question in my mind. And, it's not an if and or but, like, because he's got his priorities so locked in when he's on the golf course. He's so secure in the boundaries that he set that, his wife knows where he is. He's practicing, he's grinding. It's all to, hopefully make as much money and deliver and what have you. And then when that time goes off and he goes back home, like boundaries change, right? And you listen to the press conferences of the other guys on tour, and they will all say, like, I don't know when we'll ever catch this guy, because in between the ears, there's nobody more rock solid than him, right? And so it says a lot about mindset, which is obviously where I really hone in terms of the work that I do. And for it to have the angle that it did, obviously with him as a father, was obviously very relatable to the type of content that I put out. I knew it would buzz like crazy, so I had to
Yeah.
kind of whip together something quick to not be late to the party. But I'm glad it resonated with you.
Yeah, for sure. And what do you think that takeaway is for the, I'm using quotes if you're not watching this, the normal dad who is in the 9 to 5, the sales job, they're grinding. They don't have 30 million in the bank. They don't have, the life that maybe Scotty Scheffler does. What is the takeaway from Scotty Scheffler's message for them? What do you think that is?
I think the takeaway is that, and this comes up a lot with the work that I do with my clients. Like, I think when it comes to money, it's like, Scotty's 30 million, and for what that amount is for me and for you, it's different. Like, there's a point of diminishing return on chasing money, right? And what I mean by that is, if you're doing well and your expenses are taken care of, and for the most part, your dreams and ambitions for at least right now in this stage of life are taken care of. You've got a roof over your kids and your wife and your partner's head. They eat well. Everything's kind of comfortable. You're not necessarily living paycheck to paycheck. I think that's a moment in time to pause and reflect on this idea of like, do I need to be chasing more right now? Or, is there a point of diminishing return? I'm not saying don't go after more, because it's obviously great to think about the future and save and compound interest and the eighth wonder of the world. Like all that matters. What I'm saying
Right.
is like what I find is, I'll have and it was as recent as yesterday. I was talking to a new client who earns an insane amount of money. And the question I asked was, if you were to cut that amount in half, what kind of impact would that have on your life? Would you still be able to pay the bills? Would you still be able to take care of everything? And he was like, yeah, for sure. Right. I sort of said, so would you, and I'm not telling you to go quit and resign, whatever, but given how much stress and anxiety and pressure you feel in that job and the impact that it's having on you as a father, and would you be open-minded to the idea that maybe there's a job out there right now that pays you half? And as a result of that, there's half the amount of stress and half the amount of pressure. And so for in this season of your life right now, you can still take care of everything, but be more of the man that you want to be. And he sort of looked at me like deer in the headlights, like, I've never thought of that before.
Yes.
Right. And he goes, and he's like, I've never said this out loud before, but like, because again, like what I was saying, like you just in your 20s, you chase and chase and chase. And if you're a high performer, and most of the guys that I attract are high performers in sales and in life, and they want to be amazing at everything, and that's actually the downfall. That was my story. I'm just wired as a high performer. So until a coach took me aside and was like, "Yo, dude, you're a single dad with a 4 and a 2-year-old, and you're trying to be amazing at being a dad. If that means that you're not going to be marked on your, end of year performance review at work as trajectory changing, like it's okay. You're gonna be fine. You may not get the promotion, but like, oh, it sounds like you're. I was like, man, thank you for telling, like, giving me permission to just slow down, right? And that changed a lot for me. So now, that's some of the conversations that I'll have. And so, anyways, how it relates back to the takeaway from Scotty is just like pause and reflect on where you are in your life, and there's power in the pause, and like what you're chasing at work. Are you doing it because you're living paycheck to paycheck, or are you doing it because there's some sort of like external validation that you're in search of for some reason or another? And if so, like just talk to someone about that, because that, ultimately, like, the more secure we are in terms of our priorities, ultimately the better we end up performing, right? And I think that's my takeaway from Scotty is he's so secure in who he is as a man and what matters to him, that his performance at his craft is actually benefiting. And I think there's some irony to that, but I believe wholeheartedly, and you see it in my tagline on LinkedIn, right? Like I outwardly say, like, I will help you make more money without sacrificing your family. And if people were to ever ask me, like, can you guarantee that? I'd be like, no, I can't guarantee that. But what I can tell you is the day that you sort of get grounded in who you are as a person and get your mindset in order, you can't argue with me that you won't show up to work and start to think more clearly and perform better, which ultimately will end in greater compensation. You can't argue and refute that point.
Right. Yeah, I think the concept that I've spoken about a couple times in on the podcast. I think relates to as men, the high performers that you talked about. We get into that routine in our 20s, and we get into our 30s. Things are changing in our life, but we're just, I call it asleep at the wheel. Maybe it's a self-driving car at this point. That's just it's going, and you don't have the that ability to pause. Like you said, I love the power in the pause, to like, okay, where am I going, and why am I going here? Do I need to get out of this car? Do I need to make sure I take back the wheel and turn to get back to my priorities? And I think that is the message I want people to take away from this whole conversation, is that like, be deliberate, like be in control of what's going on in your life, and understand that priorities change. You have to be, you know, like Scotty Scheffler, like confident in who you are and where you want to be focused. And like you said, it's going to bring exponential value, and you can't argue that you're not going to show up in a better way and set yourself up for success in your career as a parent, etc. Full circle. You mentioned your story being a single dad. You've got two girls. A quote on your LinkedIn bio: I was that tired, stressed, out of shape sales dad making lots of money, but miserable. I didn't like it. I didn't like myself. I didn't like the way I was with my kids. Can you kind of dive into your journey and talk about what were the behaviors that got you there, and then where are we now?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for reading that out loud. I wrote that a long time ago and hit publish. And, admittedly, I don't read my about section very often. So,
It's still
but
there.
it's still there and it's very true. Yeah. I'll summarize it in as quick as I can. And I was very fortunate, straight out of college to land my dream job, which was to work in professional sports and to work for the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm born and raised here in Toronto. That's the equivalent of like someone in New York growing up wanting to work for the Yankees or someone in Dallas growing up, wanting to work for the Cowboys. So it was everything to me as a kid. And so I landed an internship with the minor league affiliate right out of college and put my nose to the grindstone and just, soaked everything in and built a decade-long career in professional sports. And I was around for three championships. I was there when the Raptors won. So the company that owns the Maple Leafs here is a conglomerate, that owns the Raptors, Toronto FC, and Major League Soccer, all the minor league affiliates, all the venues, all the concerts. Like it was a very special thing and a dream come true, honestly, in your 20s. And then I had kids. Or I had my first kid, and like literally the moment I became a dad, like something clicked in my mind where the grind to become the best and climb the top of the ladder at that company just wasn't as important anymore. Like what mattered more to me was just like I've got this kid now. Like I can't wait to get home. And right, it was like it just was this immediate change. And then COVID hit, right? Like there's all these series of events. Then COVID hit. And we have our second kid the day COVID hits, March 13th, 2020. Like I say that
Wow.
meaning like the day everyone was sent home with sort of like a hey, give us a couple weeks and we'll regroup. Like, we're in the hospital and I'm welcoming my second child. So the series of events in my story was, really interesting. Obviously, professional sports came to a screeching halt. No games, no plan, nothing to sell, and you're sort of sitting around being like, whatever. So there's a lot of time for introspection as well too. And obviously, like things happen in our lives for a reason. I believe in that. And so it just gave me a lot of introspection. And I had been ruminating on the idea of, making a big leap to tech for a few years because I had seen other colleagues do it and they were earning considerably more than what you earn in a passion industry, right?
Right.
And, I never was one to chase money, but I also saw the value in money as a resource and the type of impact that would have on my family. Some of the dreams and aspirations I had to provide for my kids. And so the timing kind of lined up between COVID and having this time to think, and I made a big jump to the tech world. And I would say probably within the first 3 months, I knew it wasn't for me because I realized why it was so lucrative in that, there's commission getting thrown around left, right, and center, but the product doesn't always stand up and customers aren't really very happy all the time and your sales team is miserable if they're missing quota or the comp plan isn't fair and so you're putting out fires left right and center with your people and with your customers and meanwhile like I've got a 3 and 2 year old or whatever I've got at home. I'm working in my basement, right? Like we're stuck at home
Right.
and it's just like spiraling, right? Meanwhile, like at the time, things were a little bit more complicated in my marriage and so it really reached a breaking point for me, Nick, where, I was stuck in two really difficult situations, which was like in a job that for the first time after 10 years of literally not feeling like I ever had to go to work. That's how much I loved what I did. I'm now
Right.
in this trap of like getting up in the morning is like a scary proposition. And I've sort of come to this realization that like something's got to give in terms of the marriage. So I'm like stuck in like having to, figure, and this is happening like colliding simultaneously, right? And I guess I'm wired where I've got the strength to have some difficult conversations. I've been in therapy since I was 14 years old, so opening up and sharing was not new to me, and I've got a rock solid support system, and I just had people in my corner And, to save the details, I was able to exit myself from the work situation. And then, we started the process of, taking some time apart in the marriage, which ultimately led to, permanent separation. The good news, if is that the next company that came calling to me was a world-class Fortune 500 organization with a people first mentality and benefits not to be believed that took care of me and my kids at a time when we needed it more than anything. And I'm forever grateful for that. I had an amazing 18 months there. And the greatest gift I got there was they had an executive coaching program where, as a leader in the company, you were able to sign on for 6 months for 30 minutes a week, in this virtual coaching program. And even though I had been in therapy forever, like there was just something different about coaching. And I had done career coaching, but this whole life sort of mindset, life coaching I had never really done before. She's the one who I talk about sort of giving me permission to like slow down at work and focus on at home. She was the one I opened up to and said, I'm smoking weed again every day for the last 3 years, even though I went 6 years without it. And I despise that version of myself. And yet I'm sort of caught in this cycle. She was the one that, we sort of game planned around, what we needed to do in order to start, a new journey, which involved giving up alcohol as well, too, which was not an issue for me. Like I didn't drink daily, but what I found is whenever I would go a few days without smoking weed, I'd start like looking around the house for the bottle to try and find a buzz of some kind. So, and there's addiction in my family. So it was very obvious to me that the right decision was to give it all up. And with her by my side, we started taking those steps of just like one foot in front of the other. And I remember like downloading the app. Actually, I think the app that I use, so the tired dad on Instagram, right? I forget what his real name is, but I remember just being very inspired by how open he was on Instagram about, at the time, I think he was maybe like 300 or something, and he'd post every now and again, like X amount of days and a screenshot to this app. And I remember being really inspired by that. So I downloaded that same app, just started putting one foot in front of the other. Um, and the clarity of thought that just came as the days started to stack up and I just started to make good decisions in terms of like, where I wanted to be in my life. I mean, that's when I hired a personal trainer and got back in the gym and went right up against that fear of like looking at myself in the mirror and not being happy with what I looked like. And, it just everything started to compound, right? And then we reached this moment with this coach where it became very obvious to me that the breakaway from corporate that I had been searching for, I'd say probably like, I don't know, 5 years. Like I've always had this innate, like I want to do my own thing. I just didn't know what. It became very clear that the answer was to coach and help others in the way that she was helping me. And then, it just became like a sprint to try to figure out like, okay, like how do we make that a reality? Um, and here we are. I've been now out of the corporate world for 8.5 months and I'm pulling it off, and there's
Yeah.
times where I feel like an imposter and there's definitely times where I'm like searching the job boards, just being like, do I got to go back? And right, like all
Yeah.
the spiraling, the self-doubt, like everything you read about on the entrepreneurial journey. And yet, you just bear down and put a good shift in every day and everything starts to kind of come together. So does that suffice as kind of the story?
Yeah, man. I want to just appreciate your willingness to share that story. There's obviously a lot going on, and you're experienced in sharing and opening up, like you said. But it's hard, I think, and it's good for other men to hear, other dads to hear a man such as yourself share that intimate story of like, hey, I was not in a good place. I had this going on and that going on, drugs, alcohol, all of the things, because so a large percentage of us all have, if not multiple of those, at least one, right? And I just want to appreciate you for sharing that story with however many people listen to this. It could be five, it could be who knows, right? But I appreciate you for doing that. If there is a dad, and this obviously you're helping dads do this right now in a similar situation, they're overwhelmed, they're unhappy, it's impacting work is maybe impacting marriage, presence with their kids. What's that first step?
Find something that you've been procrastinating on for a while that inherently is going to make you feel better and open up the wallet and spend money on it. Like, Robin Sharma in the book The Everyday Hero Manifesto, which was one of the like I listened to it every day to and from work for probably a year. It was a long book. There's this one chapter that really resonated with me, which, and I talk about it when I run my master classes, but he calls it the forced optimization strategy, which is really just a fancy way of saying if you want to do something, spend money on it and it will force you to do it. Because it's easy to procrastinate when it's just a thought or idea. And I think, part of the magic in my coaching, yes, the sessions are amazing and we have deep, insightful conversations and I give them homework and we hold them accountable. But the spending of thousands of dollars is really the magic elixir because when you face that fear and put that down on your credit card, you show up in a different way. And I'm not suggesting like the first step to your question is to hire a coach, but like the first step for me after listening to that was, okay, like enough is enough. If I hire a personal trainer, I will show up to the gym because I've paid for it. And the change to my body and to my mind and just like serving myself so I can be a better version of myself for others will start to take shape. We as men and as dads are very afraid of spending money on ourselves because it feels inherently selfish to not spend on our kids or our wife or, the necessities around the home. And yet, most of us anyway, if hopefully you've been putting a little bit of money away for the future, because we should, could probably pull a little bit from that so that we don't have to wait till we're 65 or 70. Because I like to say, as much as like I don't want to come across as morbid, one of the things that drives me is like I'm not guaranteed tomorrow, right? So pulling a little bit from what you've saved to use it now to make yourself better so you can serve the people who rely on you more powerfully and more strongly is the least selfish thing you could do. But it feels very selfish unless someone gives you permission to sort of look at things differently, right? And I know a lot of guys listening to this are thinking about, the in Canada we call it a tax-free savings account. I think that what's it, the Roth account in the
Yep.
States, where
Yep.
like, it's kind of this like sheltered tax and it's like, don't touch it until you're 70 so you can gallivant around the world. It's like, well, it's okay, like you can pull $1,000 from that today and help yourself. And there should be no stigma around that. And I think that's the thing that will accelerate the change for most people.
Yeah, find the one thing that you know you need to do. And one, invest in it. And two, that investment means commitment. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I think that's
It
great
just
advice.
it almost automatically will. And if you still skirt it, then you didn't spend enough. Like then you spent an amount that didn't scare you enough. Like you almost have to spend an amount, right? Like it was around this time, actually tomorrow. Yeah, July 18th was when I had a call with a stranger I met on LinkedIn whose tagline said, I turned corporate leaders into successful coaches in 90 days. And I thought to myself, I want to be a coach. I'm a corporate
That's
leader,
me.
right? The power of niching, who I ended up, learning a lot from, and we are still not only is she still my coach to this day, but we're business partners. I coach for her program, but it got to this moment where it was kind of like, buddy, everything you want is on the other side of saying yes to signing on with me. It's going to cost you $8,000. And Nick, I don't just have $8,000 sitting around for coaching, right? And I think like most of us don't. So I had to walk the talk and process in myself, what's the worst that could happen? If I pull this from the money that I have put away for God knows what I'm saving for, like when I'm 80 years old, and again, that's not, and I spend it now and I go through a 90-day intensive accelerator, and this person who seemingly is doing a really great job of selling her abilities and using LinkedIn as the platform to attract clients, like what's the downside here, right? Like what I'm going to walk away with like new friends, new connections, new whatever. It changed my life. It changed my life. Like that one decision. And I remember, because I remember sitting, I was up north at a cottage. The Open Championship was on. So, like, we're coming full circle now, toying
Yeah.
in my mind of, like, oh man, like pressing pay on this stripe is freaking me out. And then I just, I did it. And it was heavy. And it took me, the first 3 months or whatever, like, all I wanted to do was make that money back, right? Like, just to, like, make myself whole. But, anyways, here we are. And yeah, I've documented my revenue because I think it's cool for people to see. Like, I've done about $70,000 in revenue in the last 8 months, and very proud of that. More proud that I'm not chasing the money. I'm serving people powerfully, and as a result of that, I'm making a living. But I'm
Yeah.
truly impacting people's lives and having the type of transformation that these guys will go to bat for me and talk about me on LinkedIn in the most favorable of ways, and that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. I love that we're here full circle a year later. This kind of ties into my next question, but over the past year, how has your change, your transition allowed you to choose presence with your daughters? You're a single dad. What does that look like?
The thing that I was most in search of in this leap, and I tell people that like I'm not out here trying to become a millionaire. Like, I do believe in my abilities, and I do believe that as I continue to serve people powerfully, I will end up earning more than I ever could have earned climbing the ladder and getting that 2.5% raise every year. And like, hey, thanks for all you do, right? Like, I do believe financially it'll all work out for me as well too. But what I was in search of was complete autonomy over my calendar, so that if at 3 o'clock I want to call it a day and I want to go pick up my kids from school and they say, Daddy, can we go to the park? I want to be able to say, we sure can, and we can spend as long as you want because Daddy doesn't have to race back to the house to plop you in front of YouTube so that I can take the last few calls of the day. To which I want to pull my hair out because we're accomplishing nothing. There's no set agenda and there's no next steps. But that's just corporate America for you, where we're meeting to talk about next week's meeting, which next week's meeting is about the bigger meeting, right? Like, I just couldn't do it anymore. I just couldn't do it anymore, man. Like, I needed just to be able to not have to ask for permission. I needed to have a block in the day every day to go to the gym that wasn't before my kids got up and when they got home and I was exhausted and burnt out from like, if I wanted to work out and lift heavy stuff at 10 a.m., that's when it was going to happen. And, and I had just started a new relationship as well too with a woman that lived 6 hours away from me. And if I so choose to get in the car or a plane or a train to go see her, I wanted and I needed the flexibility to do the work that I love from wherever and not have to ask for permission or burn vacation days. Or that was the motivation. And that's exactly what the last 8 months have been. Like, I've carefully curated a schedule around the 50% of time I have my kids. When they're with me, they have my undivided attention. Work is over. There's no emails, there's no Slack, there's nothing I need to be doing. I can just completely and utterly disconnect from the work that I do to pay the bills. And that's the motivation. Just knowing that A, I only get them 50% of the time, and B, they grow up so damn fast, man. Like, I just want to squeeze every moment out of it. And I think a lot of that also, and we can maybe get into that if time allows, but my own dad's story is a big part of the way I see the world, and how, basically 20 years of his life, he was the sleeping at the wheel, autopilot, miserable, but put my head down, say nothing to no one, and just keep providing for the family until it reached a breaking point financially and health wise. So, how awful would it be for me to have witnessed this? And now he's on the other side. He's 10 years sober and he's living a great life. But for me to fall and make the same mistakes my own dad made after having watched it and absorbed it and played a pivotal role in helping to get him clean, like, that's the definition of insanity. I'd be making the same mistakes that he made. Like, what did I learn from it, right? So, for me, it's just about like just being so dang present every single day, knowing that like it's just a gift to like spend this time with my kids, and that's what it comes down to. And if I put my body in a good place and my mind in a good place and just keep stringing together days, I think I'm at like 620 something days in a row now with no drugs, no alcohol. That puts me in elite company on this planet of a grown ass adult going through grown ass life challenges and not relying on substances or gambling or any other vice to kind of numb it. The way I look at it is every day that I hit the pillow, adding to that streak, has been a successful day regardless of what else life threw at me. And that's a really great way to look at things, and it works for me, and I hope it works for the people that I'm fortunate enough to serve.
So many powerful messages within what you just shared. Not only learning from your experience with your father, I think we all learn different things from our fathers, and that you're right. It's a whole nother episode that we could probably both dive in super deep. But you being able to observe, take part in his challenges and growth and learning from those opportunities, because often we just repeat patterns, right? And I think maybe our generation of dads, I think I might be older than you, but like we're actually okay with like breaking patterns, like, oh, this is normal, this is what men do, this is what the role of the father is. But we're okay with breaking patterns and not being asleep at the wheel, like taking action to set ourselves up for success, that you so beautifully shared, of like, what does presence look like when you have your daughters? Like, I'm in control of my time and I'm choosing them, right? And combining that with the work you've done on yourself, being sober and off substances, but going through hard things, being an entrepreneur alone without any substances, right? Is such a statement of your dedication. So, so many great takeaways for other dads out there. You recently shared a book that was powerful for you called Good Inside. And I wanted to share two of the things you shared from that book and get you to dive in. The first one, frustration is a muscle. Letting kids struggle builds resilience. Giving in too fast or giving them a screen robs them further chance to grow. What does that look like behaviorally? I'm a fly on the wall. Your girls are frustrated. What do I see?
Yeah, one of the greatest gifts that I've been given in this world, and I don't know, I think part of it is I get it from my mom for sure, but part of it is innate, whatever it is I've got an insane amount of patience beyond what the average person would have. So my tolerance to be able to sit in a difficult moment where my kids are like freaking out, and instead of try to pacify it or put a band-aid on it, or the way Dr. Becky talks about, like, give them a tablet, or I'm able to just like sit in it and let them work through it. Not always, I'm not perfect, man. Like, I think that's important to call out too. There's, I'm a human, and there's a lot of times where it, depending on how the day's going, or if they're both going at the same time, like it's a struggle. But really, I don't want to rob from them the opportunity to learn through the fact that what they're trying to accomplish is hard, and that they can't do it. Like, I don't want to just dive in. They'll call me and be like, Daddy, like the scissors aren't working and I'm not able to cut my drawing out. Can you come do it for me? And I'd be like, I could do it for you, but I could also just come over and, maybe I can give you a pointer or two, but I really want you to try and figure this one out on your own, right? And then when they do it, like, we'll celebrate, like, see that? Like, that's resilience. Or an even better example would be my oldest lately has been on this mission to like master the monkey bars. I think the kids at school could do it, and so she like really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And she would go to the park, and of course I'm a good dad, so I make sure they're all sunscreened up, right? And she falls off the second bar. She's like, "It's all your fault. You sunscreen my hands, and it's slippery, and I can't do it, and blah blah blah." Like, right? And it's like, okay, let's slow down here. Like, maybe go wipe your hands on the grass, or we can put a little sanitizer on them, or maybe dirty them up, right? Anyways, couple minutes later, she does the whole thing. And she looks at me with this like big smile on her face. I'm like, you see that? Like, that's resilience right there. And that's just goes to show you that, like, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't the sunscreen's fault. It's a sweaty day out. And what you're trying to accomplish is hard. And if you stick with it and you practice enough, maybe you'll get it. But I can't save you from that, right? And the accomplishment that she felt having done it, I mean, I think that's what I'm talking about when I say that.
Man, the old sunscreen on the monkey bars challenge. It's a tough one. Yeah, Russ Kimura, the podcast with him actually just came out today. He's the founder of Fathers with Daughters. He talks about this, and it's so connected that, like, when they're in frustration, we often jump in. We give the tablet. We try to save them because we're uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to watch this. I don't want this noise and so I'm going to take over. I'm going to fix this. And we're, like you said, we're robbing them of the opportunity to build resilience, to work through what is actually happening, being okay, having that patience to just sit here and be like, what's actually happening? What can we do here? And how can we work together as a team, being uncomfortable for a moment, perhaps, to address this situation? So I love that one. The next
And that's
one.
life. Like that's life. That skill to me, and Dr. Beck, it's not, she makes the point, but the most important skill that we can help our children learn in their youth to carry with them to be successful in life is resilience, because we get thrown stuff at us every single day unexpectedly, and we've got to figure out a way out. And if we don't develop the muscles when we're young, then we all know adults today who don't know what to do when shit hits the fan, and it's because they were
Yeah,
probably robbed of those opportunities when more important things weren't on the line.
correct. And I think a whole separate podcast, again, diving into what are the connections between a parent's inability to sit in discomfort with their child and the connection with mental and emotional well-being in the future, whether it's adolescence, young adult, adulthood. You've never had to struggle and work through this emotional challenge, and now no one's here to save you. I can't hand the guy in the next office a tablet and say, hey, entertain yourself, right? Everything's going to be okay. Okay. The next one, I think it rolls right in. Don't rescue them from hard times. Your kids need to experience frustration, disappointment, and failure. Like connected, right?
Same concept. Like when they're in a hard moment, like don't rescue them. Let them sit in it. Let them struggle with it.
Yeah. All right. I want to give you, before we go into our last three questions of the show, share with the audience about your work. I know you're very niched into helping sales professionals. What does that look like? What does it mean to work with you? Kind of dive into your work.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's funny, like I just brought on a new client on Tuesday and he's not a dad and he's not in sales. So
Perfect.
my work, my work works no matter who, right? Why did I go that route? I went that route because I was a dad in sales. And so inherently I know very specifically the pain points that come with a quota hanging over a leaderboard, the validation, of being in the middle or bottom and how that bleeds into all areas of your life, or if it's the last week of the month or the last week of the quarter, like just, there's specific things that come with that. All that said, if you're someone that just like kind of resonates with my story and you don't have children and you're not a sales professional, but you're still stuck from a mindset perspective and you're still seeking validation, like the work that I do works for anyone. I like to call that out because the positioning on LinkedIn is to make it abundantly clear that if you're a dad in sales and you're struggling, I'm your guy.
Yep.
But yeah, no, in terms of the work that we do, I mean, it's, I call it mindset work. I think it really is, sort of a rewiring of the way that you see things and the way that you process things. It's a 12-week journey. It starts by setting the vision, and taking a crystal ball to like July 17th, 2028, 3 years from today. Like, talk to me about what that life looks like as vividly as you can paint it. Leave nothing unturned. Like, what's the world? What's the life you're living, right? Because then it becomes painfully obvious what needs to happen in order to start to make that a reality. And so the journey then becomes, all right, well, first step is let's talk about the fears that are plaguing you from making some of the decisions and some of the changes you want to make. And like, let's validate, 99% of the time, it's just a straight up fear where, we can disprove all the craziness we've created as to why not to do something and, chart a path forward. It often has a lot of times has to do with just bad habits that we've developed. And so, James Clear's Atomic Habits is foundational in the work that I do. And just, adding friction, starting embarrassingly small, with starting new habits. Like an example would be a client who for 5 weeks like just couldn't get himself to the gym. And, all I wanted from him was just a photo of him at the gym with his outfit on. And after that photo, if he wanted to leave, he had my full permission to not touch a weight or get on a machine. But once you're there, what are you going to do, right? So it's just
Yeah.
it's that, and that's James Clear. That's not me. That's it's just really starting to build in like a daily operating system for success. That starts with 5 minutes of gratitude journaling, drinking a bunch of water, carving aside time in the calendar to take a 15 or 20-minute walk to just like clear your mind. Like a big thing for me is just working with guys to prove that there is time in the calendar to move their bodies. If that's an hour to lift heavy stuff, amazing. If it's 5 minutes to go walk around the block, that's fine too. Right. And it's just like disproving all of these fallacies that we've created that like, I'm too busy, I don't have the time, my wife will never say yes to this, right? And just like my journey, we just like start putting one step in front of the other. And, 90 days later, we've accomplished some unbelievable things together. It's a combination of one-on-one sessions and group sessions, which I've done intentionally so that, every other week you're in a room with guys from all across Canada and the US that are dealing with the same stuff, and like the power of that conversation. Like everyone wants to be coached on something different in that room, but every single topic resonates with every single person, whether they thought to bring it up or not. And that's the power of group coaching, right? We've got the Slack community. And there's a lot of Slack communities popping up these days for dads. I'm in a bunch of them. Um, and but in mine, there's the nine of us that are active at the time, right? So it's if I'm on a walk and I think of one of my clients and I think he said he was going to cook dinner for his wife, like I better like do a little like ad hoc accountability here. Like that's where I'll go.
Yeah.
I'll fire in the Slack and just be like, so what'd she think of the dinner? And that's our tool for sort of that async coaching and accountability. So it's a cool little thing that that my coach obviously helped me design and bring to market. And the results have been very, very powerful. And like I said, that's what I'm in it for. And the fact that I've been able to provide for my family and be in charge of my calendar as a result is just like the icing on the cake.
Yeah. It sounds like such a powerful program. And anytime we can get accountability, and I think in the world, I talked to someone about this morning, in the world of abundant information, we know what we need to be doing. You can ask a robot, what should I be doing? Or how can I do this? But the human to human connection that you're creating for your groups one on one and as that group is so powerful. So we'll make sure to get all your information. We'll put it in the show notes, guys. If Adam's message or his personality and all those things are resonating with you, you're a lover of golf, whatever it may be, check it out, reach out, follow him on LinkedIn. That'll be in the show notes as well. And, do yourself a favor and commit to being accountable to your growth. Adam, last 3 questions of the show. First one, what is your one message you can send via text? Every dad's going to read it. What's your one message to other dads?
Act in the way that you 10 years from now would pay anything to have back.
What does that mean more?
If you 10 years from now were to look back and say, man, I really miss when my kids were 5 and 6. Like those were beautiful times. And as much as it was crazy, like I'd do anything to be back in that space. And I think, I think most of us will feel that way. Then if that's not how you're behaving and acting today, change that right now.
That's powerful. That's the message we always hear from older generations that are like, I know it sounds crazy, but like, you're going to miss this. I think it's some country song too. You're going to miss this. Don't know my country music very well. Okay, question number 2 kind of ties in. You're going to have coffee with yourself 10 years from now. What are you going to be proud of you for?
Taking the leap, making a big ass bold move and walking away from a safe corporate salary to build something of my own. And I imagine, 10 years from now, I can only imagine where I'll be because of, just the amount of growth that's happened in 8 months. If I keep putting one foot in front of the other for another decade, I'd like to think, I've built up something pretty powerful that provides and then some. So, 10 years from now, when I look back at 2024, 2025, man, you had the stones with 2 young kids going through a divorce to walk away from stability and go all in on yourself and your talents and your abilities. Like that's big stuff. So, that's something I'll always be proud of. But I think when I reflect a decade from now, I'd be like, man, are you nuts? Like, what were you thinking?
Yeah, I was going to say, you should be proud of you right now because that is a bold move. Amazing. All right, last question. This is my favorite part of the show. You get asked a question from a previous guest, and then you get to leave a question for the next guest. So after we get off, don't let me forget to ask you what your question is for the next guest. What have you let go of in pursuit of presence that no longer served you? I think this is a great question for you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful question. I have let go of what society deems to be success and happiness. I am totally at peace with the car that I drive, the 650 square feet that I live, not being able to be involved when all my buddies are together and everyone's talking about their mortgage and fixed rates and variable rates. Like, yeah, I've got nothing to add to that right now. I pay rent. I'm not renovating my backyard. I don't have a really, and like just none of that matters to me right now. And I don't know if, like there's a certain standard of living, obviously, but just being in it and present and healthy and optimistic. I've had to remove myself from a lot. Even I'm in a big thread with all my buddies and I love them to death, but sometimes the conversation goes just kind of really like negative and complaining, and I've had to just kind of like distance myself a little bit from contributing because I feel myself like when I contribute, like I feel myself get all like tight and fired up about it. I'm just like, I gotta let that go. That doesn't serve me. Like that doesn't serve me, right? Like I'm on a greater
Yep.
mission here. So that'd be my answer to the question.
Yeah, that is powerful self awareness of alignment. And when you get out of that alignment, right? And I think, no matter how big your house is, I think we have the same motto of like, you got some daughter art right here. You've got looks like some daughter art behind you, and that's all that matters. So I love that. I love that answer. Adam, it has been a joy to connect, man. I think you're doing beautiful work. I look forward to continuing to support you guys. If, again, you resonate with Adam's message, you need help making that bold move, much like he did, or even just growing as a father or as a human being, check out the show notes. Make sure to give them a follow, reach out, have those conversations. But man, it's been great to have you on the show. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for the powerful questions and the platform to share. Likewise, man. I love these conversations, but this one was particularly really powerful. So, like I always, if one person listens to us and it changes their life in some way, it was worth the hour we just spent together. That's the way I look at it. So, thanks for having.
Absolutely, man. I feel the same. Guys, if you like the show, give us a 5-star review, like, subscribe, follow, wherever you're seeing or hearing it, and we'll see you on the next episode.